We continue today with encounters. We've been talking about encountering Christ, and we have really had a couple pre-incarnation encounters. We called those Christologies. If you remember, we talked about Isaiah 6, where Isaiah says, I saw him high and lifted up, and we said that that was when Isaiah actually saw Christ in the bosom of God. We called that a Christology. Then we focused on Joshua. Joshua, who saw the what? The captain of the army of the Lord of hosts. And we said that was Christ who was actually leading that army. And so when Joshua said, are you for me or against me? The captain of the army of the Lord of hosts says, that's what I should be asking you. And so we said that was a Christology. A Christology where Christ manifests himself pre-incarnation, before his birth. And so today we have a little bit of an interesting encounter. We have two Old Testament characters that Jesus will meet face to face in the New Testament. So it's not a Christology. Christ's not manifesting himself. Christ is alive and well. But he's going to find that he's going to come face to face with Moses and Elijah. So the question should be for us, why them? Why not Isaiah and Jeremiah? Why not Abraham and Joseph? Why Moses and Elijah? So let's look at those guys and just see why maybe it was them. We know that both of them, both Moses and Elijah, actually got to see the glory of God on a mountain. Moses was given the law on Mount Sinai, and he was even put in the cleft of the rock because what did he say? God, it was great to see you in the burning bush. It was wonderful to have you lead us through the Red Sea. But you know what everyone asked me? What do you look like? And I just want to see your face. Can I just see your face? God says, nobody can stand to see my face. But here's what I'll do. I'll carve out a cleft in the rock and I'll place you in there. And as I pass by, you can see the back. And when that happened to Moses, what happens when he comes down off the mountain? His face is so brilliant and so bright and so dazzling. These are the words we hear when we say the glory of God. They were so bright and so dazzling that they had to put a veil over it. It scared the rest of the Israelites. Isaiah finds Christ or God's glory on Mount Horeb. And he sees the glory of God. So these two men both met the glory of God on a mountain. And then what else do we know about them? These two men were given special honor, special place. Moses was given the law. And so he went up to the mountain and he was given the Ten Commandments and he came down with the law. And we attribute the law to Moses, from God, through Moses to the Israelites. In fact, we even say that Moses was the mediator of the Old Testament. Now Elijah, who was he? Elijah was this guy that was gifted with this charismatic gift of being a prophet. And he's not just a prophet, he leads all of the prophets. And so when we read even in the New Testament that the law and the prophets were talking about Moses and the law and the prophets, Elijah and all those prophets that came after him. This is why they were selected. Let's go further. How did they die? They died uniquely. Moses could not get to the promised land. He got to see it. God took him up to a special place where he could view the promised land. What a glorious time that must have been for him. And then Moses died. Where is he buried? The Bible class people on Wednesday night would know. Where's he buried? Nobody knows because who buried him? God buried him. Now where is Elijah buried? Oh, he never was buried. He went to heaven directly in a chariot of fire. These are unique things about these people. So they have the mountaintop experience. They have the law on the one, the prophets on the other, and then God uniquely deals with them in death. it's very understandable why, at this story in the New Testament, Christ confronts Moses and Elijah. So how does he confront them? Jen read it really very, very well. And so we have the disciples, the big three, Peter and the sons of thunder, James and John, who are going to take this trek up a mountain. Now, I was blessed with being able to go on 2 hikes last weekend while Fred was doing his preaching here. I was able to hike on a Friday night and on a Sunday afternoon to some really beautiful spots of Bellingham. And hiking is for young people. No, hiking is a wonderful experience because you're out in nature and you're bending down around trees and going over trees and trees are hitting you in the face. And then you get to see this glorious waterfall. So it's a wonderful thing. So Peter, James, and John, we seem to take them from the elevation they're on right directly to the top of the mountain. We don't think about how difficult it was for them to get there. And as you go up, what changes? The air. It's not as easy to breathe the higher you get. So here, Peter, James, and John have gone up on this mountain with Jesus. And let's just think about it. They may have been spent. They may be tired. They may be a bit weary. They may be sore. I know they walk a lot, but walking up a mountain is different than walking on flat ground. Let's just see. We have the beginning, and he said to them, I tell you the truth, some who are standing here will not taste death. They're not going to die before they see the kingdom of God come. With what? Power. And so Peter and the sons of thunder are going to get to see this. So after 6 days, Jesus took Peter, James, and John with him and led them up to a high mountain. It doesn't say a mountain. It says a high mountain where they were all alone. Now, they're all alone. Maybe they were sitting down. They had their Yeti water bottles out and they were taking a drink, some really cold water. They were resting because they had this hike up this high mountain. Now, Jesus has told them that he is going to die. Now, he's told this before the hike, that he is going to go to Jerusalem and he's going to die. And so in the time that he tells them that, he asks them a couple questions. So in these days before they take this hike, here's what Jesus says. Who do men say that I am? You guys know the story. Who do men say that I am? And what do they say? Well, some say Moses. Some say Elijah. And some say John the Baptist. Then what does he say? They say, oh, well, that sounds good. Well, that's pretty good company. That's kind of like the Bible Hall of Fame. No, he says, who do you say that I am? Not just what do other men say that I am. I get that people think of Moses and Elijah and some John the Baptist. But who do you say that I am? And what's the answer? Peter says, he has the answer to them. Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. Okay, now Peter goes right to the head of the class. You're right. You're blessed. I'm going to change your name. Peter, you're no longer named Peter. You're named the Rock. And upon this rock, I'm going to build my church. And Peter, basking in all this glory, then, instead of keeping his mouth shut, which some of us have trouble doing, I'm in that company. Jesus tells them he's going to have to go to Jerusalem. He's going to be betrayed, beaten, and he's going to die. And Peter just couldn't hold back. He wanted to hold back. I know he did. I know how he feels. I texted Ron the other day at 10 minutes till 3. I said, please, call me so I don't say anything. She was busy, and I opened my mouth. Peter says, no, Lord. No, no. you're not going to go back to Jerusalem to die. It's not going to happen. And what does Jesus say? Jesus tells the rock. Jesus tells the man he's going to build his church on. He tells him what? Get behind me, Satan. What? Peter, go to the heavenly class. You're the rock. I'm going to build my church on you. And by the way, get behind me, Satan. There's a reason for that, isn't there? Ever felt like Peter? Jesus rebukes him. And so now they're headed up the mountain. This has happened. This is behind. They know he's going to die. And so these three gentlemen and Jesus, probably, these three guys were the most discouraged, upset, mad, disappointed, sad people to ever take a hike up the mountain. A high mountain. And they are disappointed because they don't want Jesus to die. He is their friend. But isn't it like God that a lot of times in the moment of our stress and our distress and our sadness and our upset, that in the moment those things happen, God helps us through our humiliation and our sadness by giving us a taste of His joy. And here's where we are. That's where we are in the story. Peter, James, and John are going to experience one of the most glorifying things in the Bible. Some people, this is their favorite story. And so up on a high mountain, they were all alone, and there He was transfigured before them. Now, transfigured is an interesting word. It's an interesting word because we don't use it. We don't talk about transfiguration. We hear a lot about transformers, movies and toys. But where is transfiguration? If you take your hymnal and turn to page 717, one of the great hymns is the Battle Hymn of the Republic. And if we look at verse 4, in the beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea with a glory in His bosom that transfigures you and me. It's not a word we use often. It's not even sung very often, because usually when we sing the Battle Hymn of the Republic, we don't sing all the verses. But if we sung the fourth verse, we would sing transfigures. It's not a word we use. But what is a word that we really do use? Well, the word that we use is more like the Greek term metamorphosis. Now that's a word we understand. We understand how the chrysalis, how the caterpillar becomes the chrysalis, becomes the butterfly. We understand the metamorphosis of that. Morphology is the science of forms. We know that there are things that change and take different forms. But the Greek word has to do with sudden, metamorphosis, sudden, traumatic, and visible. I think we'll see that in the Transfiguration. It's a changing form. And this happens to Jesus. But what is He transfigured into? Verse 3. His clothes became dazzling white, whiter than anyone in the world could bleach them. Now, I don't know if any of you have been in the laundry and dry cleaning business, but your pastor has. And so when he reads, whiter than anyone in the world could bleach them, it brings up some memories for me. Dry cleaners, whether you know or not, pride themselves on white shirts. And we always had sort of a contest in Buncombe County, North Carolina, where there were a number of dry cleaners, where yours truly, Varsity Dry Cleaners, had 3 stores. And we always prided ourselves on having the whitest shirts. Now, some of that has to do with the water you're getting. You have to have decent water. But I was always testing and trying the latest and greatest detergents, sours, whatever they could bring to me to try, I would try. Because I wanted the whitest shirts. But this says it's whiter than even I could get them with all the testing I did in 10 years in the dry cleaning business. Whiter. White. Now, and we see all the ads having all these detergents that say that new and improved. So this is new and improved. OxyClean, yeah. Tide. Tide came out with the best one, though. They didn't go with new and improved. Tide's a Procter & Gamble product, right? Procter & Gamble has a lot of smart people. They came out with this slogan, whiter than white. How do you like that? Whiter than white. How white is it? It's whiter than white. Well, that's what we're looking at here. He transfigures into this dazzling, brilliant, white figure because it's the glory of the Lord that is showing through him. See, Jesus and his earthly ministry always had to keep that undercover. He couldn't walk around with that dazzling brilliance that was inside of him. He had to walk around like you and me. He walked around without the most minute mar of imperfection. Not the slightest hue of gray was in that white. If you read Moby Dick, chapter 42, talks about the white whale. And if you read Ishmael's take, when he's talking to Captain Ahab about the white whale, it's almost parts of that, not the entire chapter. Parts of that chapter almost bring glory to the whale because of what? Its whiteness. And so it is with this story today, which has breeded that kind of writing in Moby Dick because of stories like this. He was dazzling white. He was bright. And then he moves on here to say, and there appeared before them. Now, I take that the way this is written, and this is Mark's version, it's in other Gospels, that they may have been resting. That's why I said, I think they may have been asleep. And it says, and there appeared before them. It's almost like they weren't expecting, and boom, they're there. Elijah and Moses, who were talking with Jesus. They totally ignored the disciples who were there, and they were talking to Jesus. Well, what were they talking about? I think Moses and Elijah were there to tell Jesus, go to Jerusalem. This is what we told people about for years. Moses shows up having been dead 1,400 years. Elijah shows up having been dead 900 years. And they're telling Jesus, go to Jerusalem. This is your destiny. This is what we talked about. This is what we prophesied. This is why we brought the law. This is why we did what we did. Do it. Do it. Go to Jerusalem. The disciples don't know what they're talking about. Peter says to Jesus, because of being startled and frightened and seeing this dazzling, brilliant light, Rabbi, it is good for us to be here. Let us put up 3 shelters. Because I want to have a bless me party. I want to have a bless me party with Elijah and Moses. Because I'm having a mountaintop experience. And it feels so good. I don't want to leave. And if any of you have ever had a mountaintop experience, and these mountaintop experiences are these times when you get to experience the glory of God in the way God wants you to experience it on your own mountain. It could be in your bedroom, it could be in your living room, it could be at a church service, it could be at a retreat service. You get to have that mountaintop experience. And when you're having it, you don't want to leave. Peter was no different. Just keep blessing me, it feels so good. Because as I'm being blessed, I have no thought of anything negative. There's no worry, no pain. There's no thought of anything except God's glory. Peter wanted to revel in that glory. And then a cloud appeared and enveloped them, and a voice came and said, "This is my Son, whom I love. Listen to him." So the destiny is for Jesus to go to Jerusalem. But Peter doesn't want to leave. There's 3 times that God speaks like this. The first one is where we see him speaking at Jesus' baptism. Remember? What's he say? The voice, audible voice, this is my son, who I am pleased. There's another time in John 12. Mark it because I've already get to it. Here we go. John 12. Then a voice came from heaven, I have glorified it and will glorify it again. Father, glorify your name. Then a voice came, I have glorified it and will glorify it again. And then we have this one, the third one here. We have where he spoke to the disciples at the transfiguration. This is my son, whom I love. Listen to him. But Peter, James, and John didn't want to hear him. They didn't want to listen. They didn't want to because they didn't like what he was thinking about, because he was going to go to Jerusalem to die. And they didn't want that to happen. Yet they're being told to listen. That's what happens to us in mountaintop experiences. We don't want to come down. We don't want to come back to the reality of life, where there's pain and worry, where there's hurt, and where we have duties that we have to do for God. You know what's interesting? We like to focus on the glory and the resurrection. We don't like to think about the death. And it's easy to say, it's easy to show that. Holy Week services, Maundy, Thursday services, 35 people, 40 people. Good Friday, we don't even celebrate. But Easter Sunday, 125. Give me the glory. Don't give me the painful death part. I'll stay home for that. Don't give me the Good Friday service. That's too dark. But boy, sign me up for Easter, baby. Woo! Let me have that glory. Let me have it. Bring it on.
Amen.
That's who we are. That's who the disciples were. Let's build a shelter. Let's stay here. I don't want to go to Jerusalem. I don't want you to die. Let's stay here. But then a cloud appeared, enveloped them, and a voice came. This is my son. Listen to him. Listen to him. He says he's going to go to Jerusalem to die. You got to listen. And suddenly when they looked around, they no longer saw anyone with them except Jesus. And as they were coming down the mountain, Jesus gave them orders not to tell anyone what they had seen, till the Son of Man had risen from the dead. And they kept the matter to themselves, and discussed among themselves what rising from the dead meant. And aren't they so us? I feel really confident that I could have said that. But we have to remember, the mountaintop experience is for us to have, but also for us to come down and do our duty, because we're to listen to God. It's not, this book does not teach feel-good religion. Now, I know feel-good religions are out there. I know some of you watch them. But that's not what this book teaches. It's not feel-good religion. It's to send us out of the building, so that people would see us as participants in the death and humiliation of Christ. That we participate in the death and humiliation of Christ, so that we can enjoy the redemptive love and grace of His resurrection. In Matthew 26, we get to celebrate part of that redemptive grace and love that comes from a resurrection. But it starts with these words. And these words maybe are the most precious, maybe the best known words of believing Jesus followers, believing Christians in all of the world. Matthew 26:26. While they were eating, Jesus took bread and gave thanks and broke it and gave it to His disciples, saying, "Take and eat, this is my body." Then He took the cup, gave thanks, and offered it to them, saying, Drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. These are the words that initiated Holy Communion, the Holy Eucharist, the Last Supper. These words. But these words are surrounded by betrayal and denial. We have beautiful words spoken by the lips of Jesus himself, words of life-giving sacrifice and love repeated often, placed in between the words of betrayal of Judas and the denial of Peter. That's not by accident, you know. That's not a happenstance. That's just not written to make the story good. If anybody thinks that, I'm going to tell you that that's not right. It's written because that is us. That's who we are. We are the betrayers. We are the deniers. And we get to come here and celebrate, whether it's communion or Eucharist or Last Supper, we get to celebrate that. Because these precious words are within the realities of our life and of the world. So there are kinds of sins that, these kinds of sins of denial and betrayal that made the death of Jesus necessary. And we know that they're evil sins, and we know they're evil sins. We know how precious this event is that we do at least once a month here, when we feast on the bread and on the juice, remembering the new covenant. And we do it because we're commanded to in two different scriptures. And that command is, do this in remembrance of me. The altar is open for Holy Communion. The ushers will direct you down. You will take a piece of bread and pull it off of the loaf and dip it in the juice, then take communion. Stay as long as you want. I invite you to ask for forgiveness before you take communion, so that you're taking it with a pure heart, taking it in the right way. But we do this to remember